Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Northwest Regional, a virtual experience. This has been a great event so far. Thank you to all of our exhibitors for participating in our trade show and to all of you for taking time out to be with us today. I'm Hiten Patel, Northwest Regional Director. I'm honored to serve as Regional Director. It's a privilege to work on your behalf and to be an advocate for initiative and issue AAHOA is constantly working on. I would like to thank our sponsors, Chase and Red Lion Hotel Corporation. Their support means so much for our association, and we are grateful for their partnership. Your involvement is the key to AAHOA success. Our officers, our board, and our ambassadors are all volunteers. I would like to recognize our Northwest region ambassadors. They work tirelessly to support AAHOA in our region. Pavesh Desai, Tejas Desai, Devan Kumar, Dhruti Patel, Jatin Patel, Tina Patel, Mahendra Patel, Nikhil Patel, Poonam Patel, Sirin Patel, Smita Patel, and Taran Patel. I would also like to recognize the Northwest Region 2019 Premier Ambassadors, Sirin Patel. He went above and beyond in service to AAHOA and to our nation hoteliers, and we are grateful for his service. Thank you to all our ambassadors and for all you do for our region. Now, let us take a moment to review our regional performance. As you can see, the Northwest region has 366 paid members, 187 lifetime members. I urge you to encourage your networks to renew their AAHOA membership. Hoteliers are struggling right now, and we need to rely on each other more than ever. If you have a friend or family member who is not yet an AAHOA member, help them out, encourage them to become a member today and take advantage of all the resources that AAHOA offers. As a reminder, AAHOA membership is free for those of you who own a Red Lion Hotel Corporation or G6 franchise. Also, if you or your fellow hoteliers is a Wyndham franchise who has never been an AAHOA member, you too are eligible for free membership. This year, our region has raised 567 for the AAHOA pack. AAHOA support candidate who support small business and more specifically hoteliers. Here are the candidates that AAHOA pack is supporting in our region. This November 3rd, please get out and vote. You need to make your voice heard. We work best when we work together. I am proud of what we have accomplished, especially in the face of this pandemic. I'm grateful for your support and your participation, especially all of you who updated your property data through myahoa.com. When you update your property information, it helps us help you, such as when we are talking with vendor or elected officials. It helps us paint a more complete picture of your influence as job creators and leaders in business and in your community. We also need your emails and cell phone numbers, and be sure to opt in to receive the latest news update and special deals. Please take a few moments today. Update your property information through myahoa.com and help us better advocate for you and to be best communicate with you. We have several important events coming up, including additional regionals. Log in to ahoa.com every day to find new events to attend even virtually. we add new ones every day. And in our region, we have the Northwest Charity Golf Tournament scheduled for August 23rd of next year. I'm looking forward to a great year. Thank you for coming. It's my privilege to introduce our panel, who will be discussing the 2020 state of the lodging industry and top issue in our region. Please join me in welcoming Jason Brandon, President and CEO of the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, Dhruti
Dhruti
Patel,
Patel, Vice
President of
President of Revenue and Sales,
AAHOA Hotels, Jatin Patel, Principal Regional at Lodging Management, and our moderator, Eric Reinerman, Director of State and Local Government Affairs at AAHOA. After our panel, please head over to the auditorium to hear for your AAHOA officers. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our very first virtual regional of this very tumultuous 2020. I'll be your moderator today. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Eric Reinerman. I'm one of AAHOA's Directors of State and Local Government Affairs. I know I speak for everyone in the entire association when I say that we're all thrilled to have you here tonight, especially for our first one. We've been working very hard on these regionals. We have three great panelists for you today who were just introduced. We've got Jason, President and CEO of the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, got Dhruti Patel from ALCO, and we've got, last but certainly not least, we've got Jatin Patel. I'll let them tell you a little bit more about themselves in a moment, but I wanted to start off by giving everyone a moment to pat themselves on the back and take a deep breath, right? I mean, you all deserve it. 2020 has been a whirlwind that nobody saw coming. Just making it thus far is truly an accomplishment, and I want to recognize that. You've had to become on the fly experts on complicated public health issues. You've had to parse through dense state and local regulations to understand what's legal and what isn't in the new landscape. Many of you had to deal with the downsizing of your businesses, which is devastating personally, the ongoing liquidity crisis, never before seen RevPARs, learning how to navigate the federal government's bureaucracy and applying for PPP and other various assistance programs, right? These are tall tasks, considering that while juggling all those things, you had to actually run your businesses for the sake and well-being of your employees, the public, and of course, most importantly, yourselves and your families. So I want to thank everyone who's here tonight and those that weren't able to join us for all you've done to get us through this pandemic. And I know I speak from AAHOA for everybody at AAHOA when I say thank you. What you've accomplished thus far is admirable, it's honorable, and we're all in your debt. So please know that we in AAHOA are working as hard as we can for you every day. With that, I want to give my three panelists a minute or two just to introduce themselves and give a little bit about their backgrounds. Dhruti and Jatin, why don't we start with you, and then Jason can follow you too.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and start. Hi, I'm Dhruti. I am the Vice President of Revenue and Sales for ALCO Hotels here in Eugene, Oregon. Our company owns and manages 5 properties, including Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Choice, and an independent.
Hello, everyone. Jatin Patel. I'm based out of Portland, Oregon, and our company, my partners operate hotels around Portland and then also in the state of Washington as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jason Brandt here with the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. We're your AAHOA partner on the ground here with a team of 15 professionals that work day in and day out on issues that are specific to Oregon, both for restaurants and lodging establishments. And boy, do we have our hands full here on the West Coast, my goodness. So we can't thank our partners at AAHOA enough for the partnership. I've been here on the staff at Orla as the president and CEO for 5 years. And prior to that, I was with the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce for 11 years.
Great. Thanks to all three of you for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Why don't we, let's jump right in. So I have a number of great member questions that were submitted that we've compiled So why don't we start with everyone's favorite topic, labor? So even in good times, right? It's tough to retain top talent. We know that. Drudy and Jatine, what are you doing to keep your employees engaged and hopeful? And what are the biggest labor issues that you are facing right now?
I'll go ahead and start. Some of the biggest labor issues that we're facing, especially with schools closing down, is not having enough daycare, and parents wanting to come to some, like our employees that are currently here, wanting to come to work, but they're having issues of where to bring their child. And so some things we've done is just allow some of the children to even come. And then we have the front desk watch them in the back. That's not ideal, of course, but the other side of it is that we are putting ads out. We are looking for new employees to hire, but we are seeing that a lot of people are not showing up to their interviews or just applying. So we get a lot of applications and then nothing goes further once we schedule the interview. So it's a little frustrating on that aspect of trying to get new employees and trying to provide employment for people who are looking for it.
Yeah, it's very challenging, Eric. When COVID-19 first became public and things started shutting down, at that time, we were continuously mentoring our teams. That guys, I know we have a small team now because we've had to lay off so many people or furlough them. And that small team that we had at all of our properties, none of us knew that this would continue for this long. And we first started with saying, okay, this is going to go on for about a month turned into 2 months, 2 months turned into 3 months, and so on and so forth. So, the team members that we have at our properties, I mean, they're pretty much worn out. So many of them are doing, 3-4 different jobs at the same time. And, we just don't have the type of revenues that we had to sustain the type of employment levels that we had to have. So, those that were good employees and good workers and would show up, they were able to find other places to work. So now that, when we started getting a little bit busier in summer and we needed people to come back, all of our good team members that we lost found other jobs. So we were, back to what Drudy was saying, people would apply and they'd fill out applications and they just wouldn't show up. So the labor has gotten really tight. There's so many of my really, really, really good longstanding employees that we have to continuously work with and remind that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But flat out, they're getting worn out and they're not seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. And it's become pretty tough, especially in the last, I would say, couple months. The traveling customers that are traveling, they're not too afraid of following the mandates of wearing masks and social distancing, and it makes it even tougher to operate and have your team there when so many of the guests are not following the laws that need to be out there for the safety of everyone. So it's a huge challenge. Probably the biggest challenge I have right now is working with our team members and reminding them that things will get better and the constant mentoring so that they stay with us and they don't leave us.
Yeah, I'm sure that those are serious challenges that I'm sure we're facing not only across the Northwest but nationally. So Jason, on the to piggyback off the labor question, what are the biggest labor issues that we're seeing pop up in Salem and, for that matter, elsewhere in the Northwest?
Yeah, we are constantly kind of a petri dish of experimentation on the West Coast. So it's absolutely crucial for us to be really connected with our counterparts at the Washington Hospitality Association, who, like us in Oregon, we're a merged association. So we do both restaurant and lodging. And then California, for us in Washington and Oregon, we have two different counterparts down there, one that runs the restaurant association, one that runs the lodging association. And there's constantly this mix of new ideas and experiments for how to stick it to the employers. And we can expect more of that in the coming session here in Oregon and also in Washington. So we're going to have our hands full. And I guess the most important thing is just engagement. The labor issues that we're trying to stay on top of right now are unemployment insurance taxes. We have new rate increases that are going to be announced just for the state of Oregon in this case in November. And there's a lot of important details there that people need to be aware of, because it's not our fault that we had to lay off and furlough so many workers, but at least here in Oregon, we're being asked to have our accounts charged with additional increases in employer payroll taxes, even though the governor ordered certain industries to shut down. So we have serious issues with that, just as a matter of fairness and equity. And we have a lot of things to unpack there. So having these ongoing discussions with directors like those of state agencies, the employment departments in Washington and Oregon, and then just being aware of the legislative agenda and being involved in the government affairs committee processes are going to be crucial. But I think the big one for us is getting fair treatment on unemployment insurance taxes, given the emergency declarations. That's a big one.
Right. Yeah, I can see that being big. And like you said, it's really true. What happens in Salem and Olympia and Sacramento, it tends to go east, right? So, we really need to watch that. And those are important topics to definitely keep our eyes on. So moving on to the next question, Jason, this is a good one for you. At the state and possibly a local level within Oregon and elsewhere in the Northwest, what are you seeing as the biggest challenges on the regulatory side? And where, if anywhere, has government stepped up and been helpful? Like, do you have any success stories? And what are we looking at, from a regulation standpoint?
Probably the more unique success story here was we had the opportunity to extend flexibility from a cash flow standpoint to a lot of our members, both on the lodging and the restaurant side. That was, I would say, unexpected progress here in Oregon that we weren't anticipating because of the political climate. But we had 6 months of eviction moratoriums in place for those that were leasing space. That affected more of the restaurant side. But also on the lodging side, there's a House bill here called 4202 that actually extended a foreclosure moratoriums all the way to the end of the calendar year. That actually was instituted earlier and got extended beyond some rent eviction moratoriums that were actually expired at the end of September. But just, in a general sense, these technical issues have provided some flexibility for operators, both on the restaurant and lodging side, to line up new investors, create new banking relationships, restructure their financing so that they can hopefully make it through what's sure to be a tough winter. But from what I can tell from my counterparts across the country, we're pretty fortunate to have this flexibility on foreclosures and also those dealing with commercial-backed mortgage securities, which is also a pretty big issue for a number of folks that are moving into special servicing. A year ago, we only had 1% of those that had commercial-backed mortgage securities in a special servicing category. In just 1 year, we're from 1% all the way up to 25%.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's a lot of volatility right now in real time for how our financing is packaged. And it's our job to make sure that we get as much flexibility included in the formula as possible. So I think we've had more success there than others. But for the 2021 session, 6 months of what I expect to be very challenging times for us. There's always people looking for new revenue. And our biggest priority is making sure that lodging taxes do not increase unless they're supported by lodging operators in those communities. And then we have something called the 70-30 split, which protects the way local lodging taxes can be used to protect the use for tourism promotion, tourism-related facilities. And so protecting what we already have and then fighting off new tax increases are going to be our biggest priorities.
Yep. Okay. Good to know.
Eric, I wanted to just add something to that if I can.
Sure.
So, one of the things that, we need to do a better job as hoteliers and operators is that we really got to get involved, with the local city that we're in, make sure we know what's on the city's agenda. I was recently at one of the cities where we have some hotels at. They had a 2% lodging tax increase. They didn't go through any of the normal steps that they should by asking the hoteliers for their opinion because, you obviously know what hoteliers are going to do. So, as we, in the last 10 years or so, as we've all continued to grow our, family businesses and continue to grow, a lot of our connections with the local community, the Chamber of Commerce, the local city council members have really, I've lost a lot of those connections that I regret now. And what's happening is, by the time we find out that lodging taxes are getting increased, there's already been the public testimony period that's already, been past us. So, I want to encourage everyone, even if you know one city council person who's pro-business, or if the Chamber of Commerce or whoever it is, because by the time we find out and it gets approved and we call up Jason to help us at Orla, they'll help us, but they can't keep an eye on every city and every, in the entire state. So I just want to really echo that to everyone. Whatever cities that we have hotels in, I would really encourage everyone to make sure that they have some sort of connection with city council. They know what the agenda is. If they're able to get on some sort of email where those agendas are sent out. And right now with COVID, it's really easy to attend those meetings because they're virtual. You don't have to show up at the city council office. So just wanted to just kind of remind everyone in regards to that. Or lodging taxes will increase because the cities are going to start looking for any which way to increase their revenue.
No, that's a great point, Jatine. Absolutely. I mean, staying engaged, especially at that local level, these city commissioners, county commissioners, they'll meet with you. If you call them and you say, I'm a constituent, I live in this district, I'm a job creator, they listen to that matters to them, and they'll reach out to you. I mean, I have seen success in that realm personally, where they'll say, look, here's an ordinance that relates to hotels. Let me call Drudy or Jatine, the guy or woman I met with 6 months ago, who I remember, who was, very friendly and very knowledgeable. Let me run it by them. So that's a great point, Jatine. So moving on to the next question, I wanted to ask Jatine and Drudy, shift to like banking and financing for a second. Have either of you restructured any loans? How are your lenders behaving in terms of working with them? Are they amenable to changes, compromise? And what are your biggest needs right now on the lending side? I know there's a liquidity crisis, of course, that we're all well aware of, but what's the latest on restructuring of loans and lender relations?
Well, I would say, I think we got to put lender relations in two buckets, right? One's the CMBS bucket, which, that one's a tough one to talk about, but I think most of our members, especially in the Northwest, are hopefully they don't have too many CMBS loans to have to deal with that whole special servicer. It's a whole tough battle to deal with. But from the other side of the traditional banks, the community banks, the regional banks, it does all come down to relationships. And we all know, that until the House bill came out, which was something, really good that the state did and the governor did to protect us from going into foreclosure, we are finding that all the banks that we have relationships with are working with us. And originally they were working with us, because, they thought it was going to be a short period of time. But as this continued, they want to work with us, but they also want us to, pay our mortgages. And we did have to remind many of them in a nice way that there is this House bill that, that the governor signed that helps us. However, my understanding from the dealings that I've had and what I would tell others that are listening today is that whatever negotiation, whatever forbearance, whatever you want to work out, if you do need help after the end of 2020, we haven't heard of any extension, you need to make sure you get it signed and sealed before the end of the year. So if you have any hotels that are in areas where first quarter of 2021 is going to be really, really rough for you, you may be able to work out some sort of extension on your mortgages and forbearance, where your first mortgages might start again in April or May of next year. But whatever you can work out, and we've done that in some of our locations, because you got to treat every hotel and every location differently, because there's different demand patterns that come. But the regional banks have been great. Relationships really kick in big time at this time. Also making sure that, that we have our P&Ls and balance sheets and all that being done timely, because that is one of the things that the lenders are asking for. Are, they want STAR reports as soon as they come out. They want your P&Ls as soon as they come out, because they want to make sure that, whatever they're supporting you with, that you have, the paperwork to back that up. So we're seeing some good results on the CMBS side. Things are a lot more different. There's not a one person to talk to, and there's different platforms and people to talk to. And so, we've been lucky with our CMBS note that we've been able to perform, and we've been able to make good on it. So we haven't had to go into special servicing.
Pretty much just echoing what Jatine said. I actually don't deal with a lot of our loan side. We have another person that deals with that. But the biggest thing is, I would echo, is the relationships that you build and making sure that you're reaching out, communicating with them, and explaining to them the positions that you're in.
Yep. Makes sense. So what strategic steps are either of you taking to forecast revenues for the remainder of the year and for next year, would you say? And also, similar vein, are you taking steps to reduce expenses at all?
I'll touch on this a little bit. Like Jatine said earlier, is that of course we've had to cut back and furlough a lot of people due to occupancy, especially in the coming months. It is going to be probably a harsher winter than normal. Occupancies are expected to be very low. We're currently running between 20 and 40% occupancies, and I only anticipate that getting slower. So right now is definitely the time to make sure you're reaching out to companies that have stayed with you in the past, making sure that they're aware of your cleaning procedures, letting them know that you're open. And I see like the top demand drivers, the top three right now would be government, healthcare, and construction. So just making sure you're reaching out and being proactive about getting people into your rooms, because transient demand, there isn't going to be very much going into the winter time. So it's going to be really about who you've made connections with and what companies that you've been working with.
Timely, because you literally stole my next question, Drudy. I was going to ask, what demand generators are you seeing today? But so you addressed that, but turning to occupancy, is occupancy as low as we're hearing across the board? I mean, I know it changes depending on how urban your environment is, how rural, et cetera. But how are your occupancies looking? And are you focused on any specific booking channels or new marketing strategies at all?
Yeah. So I'm sure everyone knows about the wildfires that were happening here in Oregon. During that time, we were very close to them. And so we had a short period of time where occupancy skyrocketed, and we were close to selling out almost every night for a couple weeks. And then now we're back down to we're quite literally running like 20% occupancies. So it is getting difficult, and we're really focusing back on, unfortunately, OTAs. People are looking for a discount. They're looking for a good deal out there. So making sure that you have you're running promotions, or you have your promotions current. And things that we're doing specifically are also like running packages. So encouraging people who are booking, encouraging them to book a little further out, because we're currently seeing our booking window 1 to 3 days out, and we're trying to push it out further just to create some base level on the books.
Gotcha. Jatine, you have anything on that?
No, the only thing I would add is, the bankers are asking us for forecasts all the time, right? And
Right.
I wish if it was that easy. We all operate in a business model where it's day-to-day tenancy. Unless you're an extended stay hotel, you might be lucky and get a 7-night or a 14-night guest. But we're not signing long-term leases with anyone like if we're a landlord of some sort of retail center. So it's very, very hard to forecast. You're really almost looking at your forecasting on a daily basis, because you got to also make sure that as you have these peaks and valleys like Drudy spoke about, where there were times where things were busy and we brought on some additional staff members, and now you want to also take care of them, and they've been good to you, and you also want to understand that they have bills to pay and families to feed, and but you also need to show your bank that you're being a very good business person by making sure you're running a very, very slim gym operation. Occupancy wise, I think there's two buckets. I mean, there's hotels that are, typically under 100 rooms. We all know that those that are, non-urban markets that don't rely on, a lot of group business or meetings and things, they're able to, get the occupancies. Of course, ADRs are, $20, $30 less than they used to be. And then there's the hotels that, are the ones that that need corporate travel or relying on group, and those have been the ones that are hurting, and they continue to hurt. And I don't really see a huge light at the end of the tunnel for those properties, but some of the smaller hotels, smaller markets, leisure, like Drudy had mentioned, I mean, construction still going on. All the projects that have started construction have to finish. There's a lot of support staff that's also traveling for a lot of the companies that have larger equipment as well. But forecasting's tough. I think it's a weekly outlook on forecasting.
Right. Well, I was going to ask about that too, actually. So we've seen it kind of I guess what I would call at least a 10-year window of solid growth come to a crashing halt, right? And because of the pandemic. So what's the current strategies of your companies, and what are you seeing, Jason, as well? I want you to weigh in too on this, at a statewide and, regionally, if not nationally. Are we seeing new properties being built? Probably not. Are you focusing on operations today? Are you looking for distressed acquisitions or notes? What's the strategy going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a macro standpoint, Eric, there's a mixed bag of strategies. We've certainly seen people seize the opportunity and do the opposite of what you might inherently think you should do, because sometimes that can be really good business. So there's some diversification of portfolios and people taking advantage of good deals when others are maybe hurting and need to move on to something new. So that is certainly happening. We have pockets of success, which has been kind of alarmingly surprising to me. Certain regions of the state have actually had really good ADR. Some parts of the coast have had ADR that's higher than last year at this time. Wow. But Jateen's point, the closer you get to Portland, the lower your ADR is, and the bigger the perception issues are relating to civil unrest and safety. So what we've noticed in kind of the road market, a lot of displacement from people that I think used to stay overnight in the Portland market in particular, and they're going to secondary markets. They're going out to the coast. They're going out to the gorge. They're going to Central Oregon. We're seeing that in spades. And then development projects in some cases have been delayed. There's some down in Drury's neck of the woods, actually down south, Springfield, Eugene. There's a project that's kind of coming online in Central Oregon. And there's projects that recently came online on the coast, a brand new hotel actually from one of our AAHOA members, Masood Khan, who just opened a brand new hotel in Seaside in July and August, the Salt Line Hotel. So there's some bright spots, but more challenges ahead than bright spots for sure.
Sure.
And I would say, Eric, I think, one of the things that, and I joined the family business in summer of 2001. So I went through the 9/11 crisis, the dot-com crisis, and one of the things that I think that, our membership and just hoteliers in general, really need to think about is that, if they are in a situation where they're not able to, to debt service their property and they run into a crunch, I really think that, working with each other, bringing in, other dollars, other investment, there are strategies that can be used to save assets to the bank and foreclosure. And in the last downturn, I didn't really see a lot of that. I saw where people would, give up and give their keys, to the bank or get foreclosed on versus bringing another equity. So I think this time around, I think people are going to work together more. I don't see too many, foreclosure type of situations happening, where we are and within maybe our membership. The CMBS animal is a whole different animal, and there may be some foreclosure ships there that might come about. But, if you're able to, run your business slim and trim. There's a lot of flexibility with the brands today, and you got to think about it that you want to be a good brand steward, but you also don't want to lose your business trying to be a good brand steward, and having that balance. And you got to keep your guests happy, your customers happy, the bank happy. It's a pretty good juggling game that you got to play with a smile on your face.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not. It cannot be easy. And I realized I didn't even list in my parade of horribles earlier the civil unrest and the wildfires. I mean, it has just been a crazy 2020, and I'm sure things are gonna look up from here, hopefully. So in that vein, I like this question a lot, and I flagged this one for everybody. What's your biggest worry for the remainder of 2020? But then I'd also ask you to kind of follow that up with what gives you some hope for 2021, right? Understanding that, of course, we don't know where this pandemic is going, But what's your biggest worry for the rest of the year, and what's something positive, headed into 2021 that you can see maybe going right?
My biggest worry, like I mentioned before, is occupancy. With the winter months coming, and seeing on the news that in the Weather Channel that this is supposed to be an El Nino year, which is supposed to be an even rainier and colder winter than normal, really worries me, as well as getting reliable employees that will stay, especially through a downtime. Something that is hopeful, though, is especially in our area in Eugene, we've been getting some requests that some sporting events are coming back next year, starting in March and April. I know that's a bit further out, but this is like the first we've heard about it in many months. So that's kind of exciting just to hear that some events are starting to book out. I feel like every month it's saying that, oh, it's canceled again, it's canceled again. So that's some bright light at the end of the tunnel.
The silver lining for sure.
Eric, I would say one of my fears is, the second wave that we're, starting to hear about a little bit overseas in Europe and those areas. With the second wave, if there's any, any big closures, anything that's going to stop the little travel that's already traveling,
Right.
where the hotel industry, we're going into our slowest time period, quarter four, the end of quarter four, beginning of quarter one are the slowest time periods. And if those periods are even slower, that's going to, put a huge strain on us as well. So I think as, we've had, hopefully everyone's been able to, have a decent summer, to have that, that rainy fund built up to get through this winter. And I know that we've been able to do that to get through the winter time period. But I am afraid of something else. And hopefully, if to God, nothing else happens, but something else, if it does happen, and that can, cripple travel even further than it is already.
Yeah.
For being hopeful, this time around, it's, versus, my experience after 9/11, it seemed like after 9/11, the American public stopped traveling at all. This time around, with the pandemic, I saw a lot more occupancy, a lot more travel, especially at our location. So I think the American public is very resilient, and nothing's going to stop them from being able to travel, and that's just a right that Americans have and they love, and we have no restrictions to cross over from one state to another. So I am hopeful that if something does happen, I think that the American public will still support travel and support commerce.
Right. Yeah, good point.
Eric, for me, it's, the things that keep me up at night are occupational safety and health administration regulations, overreach, and new regulations that are too prescriptive for the industry, that don't make common sense. Seems like we're dealing with things like that affect the hotels. Like, we have a 10 p.m. curfew still right now in place that prohibits people from dreaming about where they could go visit and think, maybe I don't want to quite go out to that hotel yet because I can't go to that bar I love because it closes at 10. Right. Or these arbitrary 100-person max rules. Right now we have this rule where you can only have 100 people indoors max, including your staff. It doesn't matter how much square footage you have. It doesn't matter what social distance procedures you have. You can only have 100. These are rules that just don't make sense. So my biggest concern right now is getting over some of those hurdles and those regulations and bringing common sense back to the table. And then I am hopeful that quarter 2, quarter 3 is the rebound that we're going to see. Like Drudy said, the vaccine, I think, and that timeline is, I think, getting clearer. And with that, I think, comes a correlating improvement in consumer confidence. But at the same time, it could be worse. Some of these occupancy levels are suggesting that people have pandemic fatigue right now. And so they're going out, like my wife and I are going and visiting, various areas of Oregon, and kind of escaping the feeling of pandemic in your house. But for those that still haven't gotten there to that point yet, and they don't have the courage yet to do that, or don't feel comfortable doing so for legitimate safety reasons, there's a certain amount of pent up demand that I think our industry will enjoy when the time is right. It's just a matter of when that's going to happen and how that correlates with the vaccine. But, I'm hoping Q2 is when we start seeing noticeable improvements at
Yeah.
the late.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing too. Hopefully that's when we can, round the corner on this thing. I'm getting messages that we're slowly running out of time. So I think maybe one more question. I liked this one. Looking ahead, how do the three of you believe that the hospitality industry will change as a result of COVID? And, related to that, what elements of the hotel experience do you truly think can change to the benefit of the owner with minimal impact to guests? Like what changes can we realistically make that will allow us to continue on without really affecting the guest experience?
I think that one of the main ones that I can see is, that could be a benefit to the ownership is, removing so many extra things that we've been loading up into the guest rooms, right? Over a period of time, we've just been adding and adding and adding. And now we've been asked to remove and remove and remove. Same thing with, one of our largest cost of doing business, which is, for especially select service hotels, are the complimentary breakfast bars, right? If you think about in the last 15 years, we've been adding and adding and adding to kind of outdo each other from one brand to another. And we've gone from that to, basically close to nothing. And it's a bag or a box with something, and, having those costs reduced and then really thinking about it, right? Every time a new brand leader joined one of the brands, they had a new idea and a new thought. And we've added things like, little smoothies at the hotels, even though when you read the box, you see how much sugar is in those things. It's not a healthy option, but you're trying to trick the consumer to think it's healthy. Most of our hotels where we offer a complimentary hot breakfast, I mean, it's no more than thawing up sausage and bacon and warming it up and putting it in a shafer. So I think over time, the quality of the food has gone down because the quantity, and we've been outdoing each other with big fancy breakfasts. And I'm hoping with this pandemic, we've learned that keeping it, short and simple and easy can still be something that the consumer is happy with versus having, a lot of low quality items out there.
Yep.
On the food and beverage side, from some of the travel that I've been doing, I love some of this new stuff with QR codes, no menus on the tables. Every table having its own QR code you can order, and the food and drinks just come out to you. So I think from a labor perspective, there's going to be a lot of hopefully opportunities. As we know in Oregon and Washington with minimum wage, and also California minimum wage being so high and no tip credits, it's really, really tough to run a food and beverage operation, especially within a hotel that has limited revenue coming in from it. And then lastly, I think another benefit that I've seen is from the inspection type of things, from if it's a brand related inspection, if it's a city inspection, whatever inspection, performing some of those virtually, can save a lot of time, and you're able to get a lot more done in a lot shorter period of time. So I think there's been some good things that's come out of this. That we've all learned about. On the opposite side, we've also learned that, virtual conferences that the hotel industries have been having have very little participation. They're boring. I've been on some where I'm multitasking and worried more about my other main, computer I'm on. I'm missing seeing each other, missing everyone, at the welcome reception. So there are a lot of things we're missing that virtually, can't be met. But there are a lot of good things I think that can save the hotel owners money. And I hope that the brands and the brand leaders are able to implement some of these things. And I know a lot of us serve on different brand committees. And I think we just got to make sure we're voicing it, we're fighting it. I know it's hard because every time a new brand leader joins a brand, they have their own, list of things they want to accomplish, and they try to, sell it to us. But I think we got to really, fight back and hold back and remind everyone that the least amount of things that we have in the room is better for safety.
Right.
Yeah, echoing a lot on what Dean said was some of the biggest things I think is the breakfast, like that cutting down, that is a huge cost to hoteliers. And then once I feel like it's become more normal and brands standardize it across all states about like what their exact, right now I feel like the specifications are very vague. It varies from hotel to hotel. And sometimes we still hear complaints like, oh, well, this hotel had this and then this hotel had that. So I think once we get like a standard, it will be very good for the consumer and for the hoteliers, for labor, like cost wise, and for their expectations on what they're expecting. Like, you know, you're here to stay in the room. The breakfast is just an added benefit to that. Like, the main focus is the room. And then like Jatin said about the conferences, that we have noticed as that the like regionals and state conferences, they you know, no one really pays attention or anything, but I think some benefits to the hoteliers that come are like the city council meetings and things that are now on Zoom that you do not have to attend in person. Like, I have found so much value in attending so many different meetings that I could not do in person before, just being location wise or whatever it was, that I'm now able to attend, and being able to connect so much more with my chamber because I have to call them or email them all the time. And so getting in touch with them and communicating with them and having them help you out. Like, for example, a little bit off topic here, but, you know, reaching out to your legislative members. Like, we reached out to Orla when we saw that California had a pet policy that you could sign for service animals. And all we had to do was reach out to people in our industry that we knew, and they created something. And that's just one example of how it just takes a little bit of advocacy, and a lot of changes can be made from that.
Yeah, Eric, really quick, two things that I think we're going to see more of: environmental considerations. You know, it's always been kind of a drag for some operators to deal with the green movement, right? In terms of frequency of housekeeping, costs related to food, which has already been mentioned. But there's some unique opportunities here to cut those costs, and every dollar you save on the expense side is a dollar you can add to your profit line. So if you can find the expense savings, that can be huge. To turn this corner, I think that's big. And then also just remember that restaurants out there have kind of realized that they can make a lot more margin on curbside, takeout, and delivery products. So for each specific hotel, there could be unique opportunities to create stronger partnerships with higher quality food that's generating more margin for those restaurant operators. So thinking about that connectivity, as you have a certain section of the consumer base that might want that food to come to them. They still want to go out, of course, but having those options and knowing that there's connections with the hotel staff in terms of service delivery and quality of food could be a movement that we see more of as the restaurant operators realize more margin on those aspects of the business as opposed to inside the dining rooms.
Gotcha. Well, that's good insight. So I think that I'm getting messages that we are out of time, but I want to thank so much, Drudy, Jason, Jatin. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass it to Hitten now, and I think he is going to take it from here.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you to our panelists for an excellent discussion. Thank you everyone for joining us for this excellent, incredible event. I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for their support of AAHOA. Chase Video. Thank you, Chase. Thank you Red Lion Hotel video. Thanks everyone for attending virtually. Please head over to the auditorium to hear from our AAHOA officers. Thank you all.